Hi, this is for my week 8 essay focusing on Revelations, and the theory that I chose to do is premillennialism because that's the theory that I've been taught in church. I don't know if it's necessarily correct, but it was the one that was most comfortable for me to speak about. Excuse me. So basically, what premillennialism is it's a post-tribulation. So they basically believe that the rapture of the church will occur after the 7-year tribulation, and it maintains that the church will be caught up to meet Christ in the air and then escort him to the earth in order to share in his 1,000-year rule. And so it also believes that the church replaces Israel's promises, and as such, the millennium will be for the church, not Israel. This isn't necessarily the one that I've focused on, but I just thought that it was really interesting because I remember in Sunday school we actually talked about what we thought Revelation would mean. So this one's basically like the rapture will happen after the 7-year tribulation. Well, what I've always been taught is that we would get raptured before. So I just thought that this one was a really interesting way of like seeing that we would go through the tribulation with everybody else and then meet Christ and join him for like his reign. So with everything happening in the world today, many people think that we're in our tribulation now, or that we're really, really close to the end times. And it's really interesting to actually go back into scripture and find the different things that it says will happen, including pestilence, which is like diseases, which is obviously happening right now, that we'll have like a bunch of diseases, and like that there'll be a lot of fires. Australia was like on fire for a really long time. So we're seeing a bunch of what Revelation says is the end times actually happening today, and that's really, really crazy to think about, but who knows like what's going on. So premillennialism holds to a literal interpretation of the end times. So in Revelations 19 through 20, it's a futuristic progressive chronology, and so it starts with the rapture, the rise of a single antichrist, a 7-year tribulation, the second coming of Christ, the battle of Armageddon, the judgment of the antichrist and the binding of Satan, the resurrection of the dead, then the establishment of a 1,000-year reign of peace, the release of Satan for one final rebellion, the final judgment, and finally the beginning of the new heaven and the new earth. So basically, that's like the order in which everything's supposed to happen. Yeah, hold on. So the pros of this is that the premillennialists will argue that Revelation is not simply about the apocalypse, but it's about I'm going to pronounce this wrong, eschatology, which is basically means the plan of God. The plan of God, about redemption and about the proper theocracy and about eternity. So it is about principled ends, but not to an elimination of the earth. So basically, there will be a new earth that we will survive on, that we will live on. So the comprehensive list of events gives people hope, and amid evil, injustice, and pain, we can look ahead knowing what the end will look like. So like this theory is basically, we already know what it's going to be. We know like what's going to happen. We know chronologically everything that's going to happen, so we don't need to like stress out about the end times, basically, because we know that Jesus will like rid the earth of evil. That is this premillennial whatever. But the cons of this argue that the hermeneutical gaps, so there's like gaps, so there's sin and death continue even after Jesus comes back, which it says in the Bible that won't happen because we'll be in like immediately in his presence. So they'll like that once Jesus comes back, we'll still have like sin, death, and all of that. So like, shouldn't death be defeated with the return of Christ is like a question that comes up. There's also why Christians are raptured before the tribulation, if at all. So this sort of interpretation can lead to a disengaged and disinterested view of the end times. If Christians think they're not going to be around for any of the end time events, like why should they care? And then finally, dispensational millennialism's view on modern-day Israel have taken a substantial foothold with American politics. So basically, it's that Christians will survive, not Israel, and that's what people think are based largely off of like politics and the shaky, if you will, relationship that we have with the Middle East. So, whatever that may be, those are like the conflict you see. So that's just like a little bit of view into the theory of premillennialism and week 8 essay.